I never thought a company retreat could be so life-changing. It was supposed to be a chance for my husband, Eric, and me to unwind, relax, and enjoy each other's company away from the stress of work. But instead, it turned my world upside down. The retreat took place at a beautiful resort nestled in the mountains. We arrived on a Friday evening and were greeted with cocktails and smiles. The atmosphere was relaxed, and everyone seemed happy to be there. We settled into our room and then joined the group for dinner. As we sat at our assigned table, I looked around at my husband's colleagues, wondering what they were really like outside of the office walls. Amongst them was Colin, tall, dark-haired, with a charming smile that made me feel weak at the knees. Colin worked closely with Eric on various projects but had never shown any interest in me beyond polite conversation. Still, there was something about him that intrigued me, an air of confidence mixed with a hint of mystery that I found irresistible. As the evening progressed, I found myself drawn to Colin's presence. His easy smile and quick wit made me laugh more than I had in years. We talked about everything from work to hobbies to dreams for the future. It felt like we had known each other for years, even though we had only just met. Eric seemed oblivious to the connection between us as he chatted with his co-workers. He would periodically glance over at me and give me a reassuring smile, but it didn't take away from the growing attraction I felt towards Colin. After dinner, we all gathered around a bonfire by the lake to roast marshmallows and share stories. The cool night air added an extra layer of intimacy as we huddled together under blankets. I sat between Eric and Colin as they engaged in friendly banter with their fellow colleagues. But my attention was solely focused on Colin, his deep voice, the way his eyes sparkled when he laughed, the gentle touch of his hand on my knee beneath the blanket. I felt a rush of desire unlike anything I had ever experienced. It was as if every nerve in my body was on fire, craving his touch, his kiss, his love. But I pushed those thoughts aside. I was a married woman, after all. My loyalty should lie with my husband. As the night drew to a close, we made our way back to the room. Eric wrapped his arm around me and kissed my cheek, thanking me for being by his side throughout the evening. I smiled and returned the kiss, but my mind was still consumed by thoughts of Colin. We climbed into bed and snuggled up together under the covers. Eric pressed his lips against mine, his tongue exploring every inch of my mouth. I responded eagerly, running my fingers through his hair as a moan escaped from deep within me. His hands roamed over my body, tracing circles on my skin that sent shivers down my spine. I could feel him growing hard beneath the sheets as he pressed himself against me. But despite his best efforts to arouse me, I couldn't help but think of Colin, his strong hands caressing my body, his lips kissing every inch of skin, his warm breath against my ear as he whispered words of passion. Guilt washed over me like a tidal wave as I realized that it wasn't Eric's touch that excited me, it was the thought of being with another man. But how could I betray my husband like that? How could I let this forbidden desire consume me? I pulled away from Eric's embrace and sat up in bed, searching for answers in the darkness. My heart raced as conflicting emotions swirled inside me, loyalty versus desire. It was a battle that would shape the course of our lives forever. I sat there in the darkness, my mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. My loyalty to Eric was strong, and I cherished our relationship. But there was something about Mark that ignited a fire within me, something I couldn't explain or ignore. As I wrestled with my thoughts, I felt the bed shift beside me. Eric sat up, concern etched on his face in the dim light. "Is everything okay?" he asked softly. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself before I spoke. I need some fresh air," I replied honestly, not wanting to reveal the true turmoil inside me. Eric's brow furrowed with worry as he reached out to touch my arm. "Do you want me to come with you?" The sincerity in his voice tugged at my heartstrings, but I knew that being alone was what I needed at that moment. "No, it's all right. I just need a few minutes," I reassured him. He nodded slowly, still wearing a concerned expression. "Okay, but please come back soon." I gave him a reassuring smile and leaned over to kiss him tenderly on the lips. The familiar taste of him should have comforted me, but instead, it only served as a reminder of the forbidden desires swirling inside me. With great effort, I pushed those thoughts aside and slipped out of bed, grabbing one of the soft white robes provided by the resort before quietly leaving our room. The cool night air embraced me as I stepped onto the balcony overlooking the serene lake and towering mountains beyond. It was so quiet and peaceful that it felt like a different world from the one inside my head. Wrapping myself in the robe for warmth, I sat down on one of the cushioned chairs and gazed up at the starry sky above. Each twinkling light seemed to hold its own story, secrets waiting to be discovered. But it was the fire burning within me that held my attention. The desire that had been awakened by Colin's presence, threatening to consume everything I knew. What was I supposed to do with this hunger, this craving for something more? Lost in my thoughts, I didn't hear the sound of the balcony door sliding open behind me. It was only when a warm hand gently touched my shoulder that I snapped out of my reverie. Startled, I turned to see Colin standing there, his dark eyes filled with a mix of concern and curiosity. "I thought I'd find you out here," he said softly. I felt the jolt of electricity shoot through me at his words, intensifying the already overwhelming attraction. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Colin took a step closer and sat down in the chair next to mine, his gaze never leaving mine. "I saw you leave the room and noticed something was troubling you," he explained. "I wanted to make sure you were okay." His genuine concern touched me in ways I couldn't articulate. There was an understanding between us, an unspoken connection that defied logic and reason. I don't know what's happening," I confessed, my voice laced with vulnerability. "Everything feels so complicated right now." Colin nodded empathetically, his hand still resting on my shoulder, sending shivers down my spine. "Sometimes life has a way of throwing us unexpected curveballs," he said softly. "But it's how we handle them that defines who we are." His words struck a chord deep within me, resonating with the truth I had been trying to ignore. This wasn't just about desire, it was about self-discovery and embracing the unknown. As if sensing my inner turmoil, Colin turned slightly in his chair so that our knees were touching ever so slightly. The electric current between us intensified, making it hard to focus on anything else. "I can't deny the connection I feel with you," he admitted, his voice barely a whisper. "But I also respect your marriage and don't want to come between you and Eric." His words were both a relief and a disappointment. Colin's honorable intentions only made me crave him more, but I understood the complexity of the situation. "I appreciate your honesty," I replied sincerely, my eyes locked with his. "I don't know what this means or where it will lead, but I need some time to figure things out." Colin nodded in understanding, his gaze never wavering. "Take all the time you need," he said softly. "Just remember that sometimes the most unexpected paths can lead to the greatest discoveries." With those cryptic words hanging in the air, Colin stood up from his chair and gave me a reassuring smile before quietly retreating back into our room. I sat there on the balcony, my mind once again consumed by thoughts of Colin and the endless possibilities that lay before me. It was as if a door had been opened to a world I never knew existed, an intoxicating blend of desire and uncertainty that both terrified and thrilled me. As I watched the first rays of dawn break through the darkness, casting a golden glow over everything in its path, one thing became clear: nothing would ever be the same again.